The video struck a lot of different emotions in me. First, watching the video, I felt really overwhelmed with sadness just hearing the struggles of what people go through just because of different identities they hold, um, especially around gender, which I think is something people hold so close to them. I never really, until I came to college, I never really thought what it meant to be a woman just because it's something that was always so ingrained in everything I did or learned or interacted with. And then learning more about gender made me realize just how much gender affects all of us and how a lot of people don't have the privilege to never have to think about it. And to have something that people hold so close to them, like their gender, kind of affect their schooling so much was it's really hard to hear. Definitely reminded me of some experiences I've seen in my classes. And when I think about these experiences, I also think about that I'm a social work student and a women's studies student, and all the classes that these have happened in have been either social work or women's studies classes, and these are classes that are based on social justice. So for these problems to be happening in my departments, it really makes me wonder what it's like with the departments that have nothing to do with gender or social justice, but still have students who don't fit the gender binary. This reminds me of an experience I had in my Intro to Women's Studies class. We had a student who would repeatedly ask the professor to identify them as they, them, their pronouns, and the professor really never did during the semester. Anytime the student was called on, they were always misgendered, and like I really saw how it affected the student. There was always like very visible reaction. And in some cases, the student would maybe react to the professor and then was kind of labeled as disrespectful or disruptive, as opposed to maybe exploring the root of the problem, which was that they were really consistently being misidentified and not respected with their pronouns in a class that's supposed to be a safe space, because it's supposed to be a space to talk about gender. It's a women's studies class. And I remember even an instance where the student had to leave the room just because they were very upset that the professor just was blatantly ignoring their request to be called by the right pronouns. Another instance has just been in my social work classes. Again, professors just not respecting pronouns. When repeatedly said, and again, it just is social work and women's studies professors aren't getting it right. I think they should be at the forefront of this, and they should be the ones very committed to this, to properly honoring people's identities, and they're just not. There was even an instance where a professor was interacting with a student in front of the class as like an example basis, and they repeatedly were misgendering them and just kept using the wrong pronouns because the student had asked repeatedly to be called by they, them, theirs, and they just kept using she pronouns, and I could see how upset the professor was getting. And so I raised my hand and was like, this student is not a woman. Please, like, they have said they prefer to be identified as they, them, theirs, or by their name. And I think that really made an impression in the professor. I have kind of mixed feelings about that, and mixed feelings after watching the video, because on one hand, I want to be able to use my voice as a cisgendered person to help, but on the other hand, I also find it frustrating that professor would listen to someone else more than the person that knows themselves best. The person that is asking for their preferred pronouns, I feel, should be given the most respect and listened to. It shouldn't take a cisgendered person to step in. and those are feelings I'm still kind of questioning after the video. What also really struck me about the video was the part about names. I have the name I was born with, and it's a family name, and it means a lot to me, and I know, like, names, especially ones you identify, I happen to identify with the name I was given, can mean a lot, and so having a name that you picked out that is not even honored, I think would just be so hard, since names are something, like gender, we hold so close, and it just seems like something no one should ever have to give up, is their name, especially if it's one you chose. The end of the video, I felt a lot different. I felt a lot more uplifted, especially when I heard about the gender-inclusive dorms, or I think CSU or something like that, and I think it would be a really good idea for all campuses. And the part about the restrooms, I felt like was very important and something that college administrators need to see. Some questions I still have is, like I mentioned, what can cisgendered people do to support gender identity but not overwhelm, or where should we stand in the fight? And also, how can we make it so professors need to learn these things? I mean, I think especially for gender studies and social work, professors should be given some sort of course every year or two on just different social issues. It's what they teach. But I would love to see that in all departments. So that's how I feel about the video.